What are the manifestations of Ardibehesht or Ashavayista? What are his divine qualities? What are his virtues? And how do we mimic these virtues in our journey towards Dador Mazda? Hi, this is Abovitara. I'm so glad you could join us on this topic of individual spiritual alchemy. We're on our journey, and so far we've covered very basic introduction to spiritual alchemy, what it is, which is basically conversion of our character from a very basic human character with both positive and negative into a more saintly character, and from saintly to divine. And the reason that we do this is basically for the liberation of our soul, to free our soul to attain our own mukti, or what we call Frashogard. We covered, we're looking at the seven Ameshaspands, because not only did the Ameshaspands manifest creation, all of creation, in order to bring it back, bring all things back to perfection and bring it back to that Mazda, but we're looking at the Ameshaspands, each one separately, to understand what their divine virtues are, how these divine virtues manifested themselves into what we see in creation today, and how we can then learn from them and become more like them, so that we can move um, towards Dada Mazda on the path of perfecting um, our own self, what we call self. Today's topic is going to be Ardibehesht. So, Ardibehesht is a very interesting topic, but I want to say here that there's a reason that we're kind of taking this order. Um, if you look at the chart up here that I've put up here for you, Orma's Ameshaspand has all the divine virtues, so clearly we can't start there. Khordad and Amardad Ameshaspand are at the stage of perfection and immortality. So obviously we can't start there. And we started at Aspamnamard Ameshaspand because the very first step, as we discussed in that video, is humility. No matter what religion you're in, the very first step is humility, the ability to accept God's will, the ability to um, remove the sense of self very slowly and understand your greater purpose on this earth. In doing that, you need a lot of strength, you need a lot of willpower, and that's where really Sharavar Ameshaspand comes in. And Sharavar Ameshaspand really teaches us how to do this, how to develop these strengths along with spiritual tools. So we learned that just as a warrior um, goes out to war, uh, the warrior still needs, when the warrior is not at war, the warrior still needs to be fit and to practice his art even when he's not at war. And what is our war? Our war is the internal battle between good and evil. So, in our internal battle between good and evil, humans have been given religion. And we'll discuss at some other video why there are so many other religions. But in this video, it's just important enough to understand that um, our religion does give us the spiritual and physical, well, spiritual equipment that helps us both in the physical and the spiritual life. And it gives us this equipment so that we can do these things. And our practice and customs are laid out for us, so to help us build our inner strength, the strength of our that mental strength to resist um, evil thoughts, words, and deeds, the mental strength to see it before it comes to you. So here we discussed Sadhukasti, we discussed why why we have certain rituals that we have to go through and we have to practice. All of these are just like a soldier would exercise and be fit for the job when he goes out to battle. Similarly, where our battle is within us, it's a spiritual battle, and we've been given spiritual equipment. So that is kind of this process why we're starting with Spent or Mighty first, and then going to Sharavar Ameshaspand, understanding that we need strength to do this and we need help to do this. A person cannot conquer these things without help. So Ardibehesht Ameshaspand, if you look at the chart, that I've put here for you. Ardibehesht is in charge of fire, all kinds of fire energies. And so we have, in our religion, identifies at least 16 types of fire energies. We don't need to go into it right now. It's a pretty deep discussion. Um, but uh, what that means is it's not just the fire that we see. When we go to an agyari, an atasparam, or the devo that we light at home, it's not just that physical fire. Fire is actually the energy that is um, any kind of a energy or a wave. So even within our own bodies, we have cells, and even in each cell, there's a nucleus, and there's neutrons and protons and electrons, and they're all moving around in there. And that movement, that little dance in each and every cell, in each and every atom of not only you and I, but everything that we see around us. All this is under the charge of Ardibehesht. So, what does Ardibehesht really mean? And it really means it's the law of Asha. And before I go down that road, I want to continue just with the example of this movement and these motions. What are these movements and these motions? So, what Asha is divine law, divine order, divine beauty. I'll put up a little chart here for you for that as well. Um, just a sec. Okay, there it is. So we see that Asha has 7 aspects. It has divine law, divine order, divine beauty, divine truth, divine righteousness, divine purity, divine freedom. So what does all this mean? Really, Asha is that very law, in fact, that governs and runs the entire universe. So even the motion of the planets, the motion of the galaxies, the swirling of the planets around and the stars around, all all this is part of the laws of Asha. And they are what we call immutable laws. These laws cannot change. They don't change with our generations, and they do not change. This is the law that is set out by Dada Mazda. And it is the law by which everything functions. So, um, in ourselves, our own selves, how does this apply to us? How does this laws of energy apply to us? Well, we already saw that we have so many uh, parts to our own physical existence. So, I mean, to our own existence. That would be, we have, I put a chart up here for you. So we, again, just to show you, we have 9 constituents of a human being. We have 3 physical constituents, 3 ultra physical, and 3 immortal or divine. And these are all vibrating at different levels, at different velocities. So we can see that um, our Fravashi, Bodang, and Urvan are divine, they're perfect, they're pure. Then we go to the ultra physical qualities, and that really includes the 16 chakra that we have, all our desirable forces within us, or desire forces in us rather, and we also have the subtle life force that is within us, and hence also, like in all your chakra, in your aura, is every thought, word, deed um, that you've ever thought from the beginning of time. And it is all remains there until you have managed to alchemize those energies, positive and negative, into something that is perfect. And only once we perfect those energies can we move on that path to soul liberation. So here we see that even within us, just as the solar system is functioning with some perfection in it, and it's guiding all our destinies, it's doing it for a reason, that it's pushing the entire universe towards us perfection, towards becoming divine light. And similarly, the same thing happens to our bodies, and the same thing is happening even at a cellular level. So here we see that the laws of Asha work right from the beginning of the universe right into our very atoms of our body, and will continue to work in us until we go back, until we perfect ourselves and go back to Dada Mazda. So, here I want to clarify that I'll go back to the chart for a second. So here, many people, um, many of us, we just try to reduce Asha to only one of its aspects, which is called truth. Well, it is the truth, but not just the truth as in being honest, speaking a lie, or speaking the truth. It is not merely that truth, because the truth means, just as I mentioned to you, um, understanding our existence, understanding what makes the universe function, what is the divine forces, what is that. When people say today, because they don't want to be talk about a religion, and they want to be sort of neutral towards religions, they say, oh, I put a thought out in the universe and the universe answers me, which is, there's nothing wrong with saying that. But even in that, you recognize that there's a consciousness that the universe functions with. And it's not just a consciousness, not just like you and me, which are in our own sort of worlds, and we're just interacting, and we don't really understand our interaction if we don't reach our higher state. So the universe isn't like that. The universe understands its interactions, it understands why it's making us interact with each other. So it has a divine consciousness. And so that divine consciousness, truth is about understanding not only that divine consciousness, understanding who we are, what we are made up of, what our purpose here is in life, that we are here to move towards Dharmasya, that we are here to perfect ourselves and move to Dharmasya. And in that qualities, I'm going to put this other chart back up here. There's a lot of aspects to Asha. As we said already, divine law, divine order, divine beauty, divine truth, divine righteousness, divine purity, divine freedom. So here, there's a lot of there's a lot. So here, there's a lot more depth to Asha than just saying Asha equals truth. So, truth of what? Truth of our existence, truth of God, truth of who we are, to understand that we are actually not, there is no self, to understand that we are actually basically a soul that has come here to correct certain flaws, certain energies. Those energies have materialized, have condensed, just like oxygen is condensed and becomes liquid. Those energies, as we progress down from the heavens. I'll put that chart up here again, though we talked about it at length before. So, our soul, to understand the truth, means understanding that we were once with Dada Mazda in the form of spirit. But there were certain flaws, there were some negative energies. And so, what Dada Mazda has done is he has created all creation through these seven Ameshaspands and instructed them to create all things and bring everything back to them back to him once it is perfected. So here we can see that our soul has gone from Dada Mazda to earth on the path of Mazdadat. Mazdadat meant the um, enfoldment of the soul into matter. So just as you can condense and compress oxygen and it will become liquid, and I think even if you compress it even further, it actually becomes uh, a solid form as well, if I'm not mistaken. So in that sense, our spirit has been condensed because there was some negative energy. What was that negative energy? It's the thought of self. And we have come here to sort of learn, to sort of have this spiritual education that ultimately there is no self, that is just my soul, which is already part of Dada or Mazda, but that it is here working on this, what we call our aura or the kerp, and our desires, our thoughts, our emotions, and it's fixing them, it's pressuring them to convert into perfection, to go from darkness into light. So, so I'll put another diagram up here again for you, talking about converting our dark energies into light. So if you look at the diagram, you see that we have physical components, we have ultra physical components, and we have divine or immortal components. And these are all really um, levels of uh, light, right? So we have Fravashi being a very sublime light, um, very sublime divine light. We have Bodang, which is divine intelligence, perfect divine intelligence or knowledge. And we have Urvan, which is our soul. And all of these things what we already know are our light. But then we have our Kep, Tivishi, and Ushtana. And these are our 16 chakra, our desire forces, and our subtle life energy. And they have in them, within them, all our thoughts, words, deeds from the beginning of time till today. And as that energy is further condensed and compressed, um, that energy solidifies and becomes our physical aspects, like Ardibehesht, Tanu, and Geta. Now, Ardibehesht is our etheric double we talked about before. Our Tanu is our skeletal body and basically our body, and Geta is our vital organs. But here, I don't want to um, mislead you into thinking that you go straight from one to another. We do have an entire uh, um, an entire description of creation and evolutions. We've gone through the evolution of fire, we've gone through the evolution of air and the evolution of water. So that's when these three things were developed. But then through the evolution, when the earth itself went through the evolution of fire, our care aspects were developed. When the earth went through the evolution of air, our Tivishi aspects were developed. When the earth went through the evolution of water, our Ushtan Up, came into being. And now we're in the process of the evolution of matter. And that is when we are now within this physical body. So, um, so here I want to say this is what we mean by the condensing of our dark energies are condensed now into matter. Why is it condensed into matter? Yeah, we looked at that. I believe we looked at it before. I'll repeat it again. It's because once once we were with Dada Mazda, but there was some negative. That negative now, as we descend through the heavens, I'll show you that picture again. As the soul has descended through the heavens, through the nine asmans of Minoi and Hasti, Atas and Minukar go through Nisti and down to Geti, the earth. As that soul has descended, the negative energies have so-called condensed and become matter now after so many evolutions. And the reason for this is because Dadamas does not force us. God, by any name, does not force us into perfection. Like, for example, you would force a child, you would say, you've done something wrong, go to your room. When you apologize, you can come up, which is fine. Everybody does that. But what has not happened in that instant is the child's nature hasn't changed. They've just learned that if they do something wrong, they'll be sent to the room, and that if they say sorry, they'll come out. And so there's some element of truth to that. God has also sent us, Dharmas has also sent us to the earth, and you fix yourself. And when you're perfect, and if you apologize, you can make your way back to me. But it has not changed our nature, just as that child's nature hasn't changed until the child changes the nature. How does the child change the nature? Through his or her own willingness, his or her own understanding to realize that what to realize what was wrong with what they did or said. So similarly, for us and our negative energies, from that spiritual existence with Dada Mazda that forced us down, our negative energies have to come to this self-realization that negative is not good, that negative leads to negative, that positive leads to positive, that righteousness for its own sake, not righteousness to protect anything of me or anybody else, but just for its own sake, truth for its own sake. So hence we've come through this big long journey because God is very merciful. Adonai is very merciful, and He wants us to understand um, and go back on the path of truth for the right reasons. And in this way, so when we go, if you look at this picture again of the 9 constituents of a human being, which I've put up here, in this way, when we perfect that which is in our aura, our care Tivishi Ushtana, when we perfect our thoughts, our words, our deeds in this aura, then what we are doing is when we finally release ourselves, when we finally shed our body, our aura, our care is full of only positive forces, light forces, all the darkness is removed. And in doing that, we have literally freed our soul from bondage to the material world. So this is the process of turning darkness into light. Um, but there's a little bit more to Asha than even this. So if we go back to the chart here on learning about Asha, I'll put it up here. So most people look at Asha, they don't see that it's a divine law. Most people just simplify it to being truth. And it is truth, but what do we have to develop? What values do we have? What virtues do we have to develop? I mean, we are not going to be divine law, and we are not going to be the motions that control the universe and the solar systems and the galaxies. So, what do we have to do? And that is basically developing a love for truth. So, what does a love for truth means? It means that you love truth more than you love self-preservation. You love truth more than you love material things. You love truth more than you love um, being just nice to somebody. For example, saying a white lie to either protect your job or protect somebody's to protect somebody from hurting their feelings. The idea here is to love truth more than you love all these things. And right now, we kind of love all these things more than we love truth. We always think a little white lie doesn't matter, a little bit of cheating doesn't matter. You know, we do it all the time. We share passwords, we share our membership cards, we um, say things that we don't really mean. You know, if somebody gets a haircut, you'll say, "Oh, that looks nice," and you don't really mean it. So we do a lot of things, and it's releasing ourselves from the bondage of self-preservation or protecting the wrong things into protecting truth, and to loving truth so much that you can't utter that lie. Um, I'll give you a very small and a very cute example. Actually, many years ago, as I was just a child, and my parents had a park, and they had a store in that park, and the gentleman had come to buy candy for his child, and I was also a child, probably the same age, and in those days, you know, we had those big clunky cash registers that, you know, you punch something in and the thing would go make noise for 5 minutes before it spit out the receipt. And so a gentleman bought a 5-cent candy, and my mom rang it up, and and the machine started making noise for 5 minutes, and the man told my wife, the gentleman told my wife, sorry, the gentleman told my mother, um, Franny, why did you ring this up? The paper is costing you more. Just put the 5 cents in your pocket. So my mom told him, very sternly and very, without hesitation. She said, sir, if I did that, then I would have sold my honesty for 5 cents. And I stood beside her and I wondered, wow, what would I sell my honesty for? Like $5, $10, $50, $500, $1 million. And then you realize that, you know, you realize that really honesty isn't for sale. um, so it's loving that truth more than you love all this. Um, so that was just a small example I wanted to give you, but it's very much how we have to change our character from being attached to the wrong things in life to being attached to the right things in life. And truth is one of those right things. And understanding that truth, again, I'll repeat, is understanding not only truth and lie, as in honesty, but also understanding the truth of our existence, the truth of our individual makeup. What are we? Who are we? Where that we have a soul, that we have a care, that we have all this divine work to accomplish here. And are we accomplishing it? What are we doing to accomplishing it? How will we accomplish it? Um, Going down that path, going towards that almost understanding what that path is. And hence, the love of truth also in that regard means the love of religion, the love of the path, the love of following that path, loving to be on that path. So, love in that sense, uh, let me explain that idea of love a little differently. So, when you love something, if you love food, you gravitate to it. If you love to be in the outdoors, you gravitate to the outdoors. If you love watching movies, you're going to gravitate to the TV. If you love an animal or a person, you gravitate to that animal or that person. And hence, love of truth means gravitating towards truth, loving it more than you love everything else, wanting to be part of it, with it, um, being it more than anything else. So, for many of us, today, especially in these days, many of us don't wear sadrukasti. Either it's inconvenient, or it doesn't look good under our clothes, or our clothes do not allow us to wear the sadrukasti. But here, it just means that we love all these things more than we love the path of truth, more than we love traveling on that path of truth, more than we love the strength, the beauty, the wisdom that we get from going on that path of truth, more that we means that we love all these material things, these um, futile, really, things, more than we love moving towards Dadaramasta, experiencing his love, experiencing truth, experiencing wisdom, experiencing divine interference in your own life. So when we do that, when we when we love all these things more than we love traveling on the path of truth, it's like holding up a piece of paper to the sun and saying, okay, and blocking the sun's light from you. Um, as we cleanse our thoughts, as we perfect our thoughts, as we travel on the path of truth, and as we desire the truth, it's like poking a little hole in that piece of paper, and suddenly this brilliant sea of light comes shining through. And every time that you are able to cleanse some part of your negative aura, that brilliancy of divine light, not only from what is around us, all the agencies, divine agencies that are trying to help us, they come shining through, but also your own internal divine light, divine wisdom, soul's intuition, and all, uh, um, how would I say, it's actual walking together with you in your life. So all these things all come to be, and you start loving it. You love the drops of divine truth that come to you. You love the beauty of the strength that you're building up, the character you're building up, and suddenly all these little things don't matter anymore. So this is really what developing the virtues of Ashavesta really means. So loving that truth, loving the the knowledge that the entire universe is working on the laws of Asha. They are immutable in the way that what Asha Vaista does is that it has centripetal and centrifugal forces. And what it does is it pushes all negative energy away from the heavens and Dharma Mazda, and it pulls all positive energy back to Dharma Mazda. And we want to be on that path back to Dharma Mazda. And the only way to do that is for us also to create our own internal centripetal centrifugal forces that will will make us want to gravitate towards those truths, towards the path of religion. These are the things that will pull us back to Dadurmazda and help us, give us all the immense strength to stay on the path. Sometimes staying on the path is difficult. I mean, not sometimes, I mean, most of the time it's difficult. It's difficult only because we still haven't let go of the pull that material world has on us, the pull that the idea of self has on us. But as we travel that path, that pull of the material world, the pull of self-preservation, the idea of self starts to diminish because you kind of lose yourself. You don't care about yourself. You want to go more towards Dadormaza. You want to learn more about these divine entities around you. You want to be more like them. You want to work like them. You want to perform with them. You can even say like friendship, like you want to do things with the divine entities, and you see that all the time. You see people who are very generous, either in philanthropy, or you can see people who will sacrifice their time and money to go be and help somebody else, sometimes even sacrificing their own lives. You can look at people who are um, workers like police force, or the fire department. They all sacrifice. They take huge risks for other people, and so it is not so beyond us to practice these things, but to do it all the time and in everything is difficult. So this is how we start to develop the virtues of Ashavesta, is that to become that love for truth, bec- to gravitate, to have your own sort of internal centripetal centrifugal forces that will push you away from the negative, where somehow you're not attracted to it anymore. You're not attracted to hate. You're not attracted to vengeance. You're not attracted to anything. You're only attracted to the positive things in life and the positive emotions and positive thoughts. So creating that within ourselves and moving in that direction also then pulls us, Ashavesta then also pulls us in that direction towards uh, our final union with Dharmasta. So I hope you have enjoyed this discussion on Ashavesta and developing the virtues of Ashavesta or Ardibehesht. Our next topic is going to be on Ameshaspand. And again, a very interesting topic because it's so controversial. What is Woman? People think that um, humans already have Woman, that we have this already intelligence in us. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what that really means, and how we develop that kind of intelligence. So do join us for our next video. I'm going to put the links in the description below for the next video, which is Ameshaspand, and I'll also put the links for the previous videos if you haven't seen them. The first one was on the introduction to individual spiritual alchemy. The next one was on Spendar Mighty and developing the virtues of her, so developing virtues of Spendar Mighty and then developing the virtues of Sharavar Ameshaspand. And today's was, of course, developing the virtues of Ardibehesht Ameshaspand. We'll see you in the next video. And thanks so much for taking time to be with us. Thanks. Bye bye.